Not yet. See it now. Yeah, beautiful. All right. 3 minutes. Testing, testing, testing. That sounds great. We should have a caller around 8:15. Yeah, let's do it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's 8 o'clock on Thursday night, and that can only mean one thing. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the 32nd installment of the Age Out Angels Radio Hour. I am your host, Greg Rapport, and I am the founder and executive director of Age Out Angels. We are a 501c3 nonprofit corporation that provides one-to-one mentors to youth who are in need. This radio program is brought to you every week at the same time, courtesy of Doc G and the fine people here at Hamilton Radio who allow us to use this airtime. Doc G is at the big board tonight along with Robin, and we appreciate you both being here. I just want to take a second and say that we don't spend enough time talking about some of the other great programming that happens right here every week on Hamilton Radio. Interesting shows, interesting guests, interesting interviews. If you're into the occult, the show that precedes us every Thursday, I believe it starts at 6:30 to 7:30, is called Paranormal Activity. And if you're searching for answers to the unexplainable, you may want to catch their show and then spend the next hour after that with us, and it could be a fun evening. Listen, my only complaint about Paranormal Activity is when they go, they leave all kinds of spooky stuff behind in the studio. I'm serious. They're laughing, but I'm deadly serious. The strangest things happen after the people from Paranormal Activity leave our studio. We've had the motherboard spontaneously combust. The internet cuts in and out. I'm not kidding. They have a great show, but I'd like them to take all of their ghosts home with them. I think that's fair. And that's not all, though. There are other great shows that I'll talk about, a couple of others, in just a moment. But I hope that everyone understands that this is not like a one-off podcast. This is a real radio station. No call-ins tonight as we keep the line open for our special guest, who is Marcy Giarizzo. And Marcy is going to tell us what life was like for her as a foster parent, I believe, in California. And also, she's done a ton of work within the boundaries of child welfare and rehabilitation for the incarcerated. So no call-ins tonight, but you can put comments on my Facebook page, and I hope you will. If you put comments or questions on the Facebook page, let me know you're out there, or you could ask a question to me or to our guests, and that'd be just fine. So if you're listening to this show, I assume you have some interest in child welfare. And so you might like to sample a show that's here at Hamilton Radio on Sunday evenings at 7 p.m. called Man of the House. And that's a group of people who work towards developing stronger families with a more committed male presence, something that is sorely lacking where we live in the city of Trenton, New Jersey. And at Age Out Angels, we need to stay linked with their kind of thinking. It's very important that we all work together on that. So that's Man of the House at 7 p.m. on Sunday right here on Hamilton Radio Channel 2. Also, this station is a great source for music with DJ Danny and Doc G. And this is how this station developed to the point where last week we had over 33,000 listeners. We had about 2 weeks before that, we had almost 38,000, over 38,000 listeners. And we thank you so much for tuning in. And like I said, I hope you write in to say hello on the Facebook page so that I know you're out there. So with that in mind, also, please tell your friends to tune into this program right now so we can spread the word. And you do that by hitting the share button on your Facebook page. Or if you want to be really nice, send a mass email to your address book. We'd be so indebted to you forever for that. And please ask your friends to share with their friends the same way. It's that simple for you to do your part and help us spread the word. We didn't get to 33,000 listeners without the power of this radio station and your help. And we're so grateful. So do it right now. Hit that share button. Some good news and some bad news to report this week. You know what? It's been more of a downer than it has been an upper this week. I'm sorry to start the show that way, but, you know, truth is truth, and you got to stand in it if you're going to deal with it. So you've heard me talk about Brian. Brian had been spiraling downward for about a month now after Brian ran away from Covenant House. He kicked around some and finally was accepted back into his parents' house, but that only actually lasted a couple of weeks, and I got a text the other day that he's back out on the streets. So I'm not feeling good about that. We did get a train ticket to a young lady to enable her to continue commuting from New Jersey to New York so she could stay in college. So that's coming in on the bright side. But at the same time, we lost a young lady who left college and didn't finish the semester. That made me really sad. When I say lost, I don't mean she passed away. I mean, we just, lost her path, to success. People backslide in this industry. I mean, one of the things that you have to always remember when you are working with youth who are at risk, the word we use now is vulnerable. I mean, there are other words, at risk, impoverished. Youth who have generally suffered multiple childhood trauma, they'll backslide a lot. And the most important thing, I think, that you can learn if you ever decide to work with an organization like Age Out Angels is never, ever give up on a child. Don't do it. It will, you'll waste a little bit of money, or you'll feel like you're wasting it. You'll waste a couple $100. Like if you find a child on the street, it takes you $200 to sort of get them right, to get them into a place where they can have shelter and food, to get a couple of their things out of hock that they pawned, in order to get a meal. It costs you $200 to do that. If someone's older, if they're like 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, they're trying to get back to school or something like that, it can cost more. It can cost $500 to $1,000, okay? And then, like, you look at that person 2 months later and 3 months later, and you find, whoa, they're making incredible progress. Look how they're settling into a path for success. And then all of a sudden, bang, it's just like, the roof caves in and there's this spiraling downward. And you feel like all the work you put in and the money that you put in, it didn't have a payout at the end. Like where's the quantifiable results that you can show from the $200 that you spent on this child, or $1,000, and maybe 25 or 30 hours of your time. And what you really have to remember at that moment is you did have a positive impact. You didn't turn their whole lives around, because that's how movies of the week work. It's not how real life works. It can take months. It can take years. Some people just don't turn around. I'm going to tell you in a minute about a program we're doing here at Age Out Angels to try to help to move that process forward. And it's really very interesting. But as I'm talking to you tonight, and I started this out by saying there was just bad news this week. I'm making myself feel better, so thank you for listening, because they do derive a benefit. They may not just be on a meteoric, skyrocketing course to totally reverse the last 20 years of their lives, because it doesn't work that way. It's unrealistic, to think that it will. So, you know what? With all these kids in mind, please tell your friends to tune into this program right now. Hit that share button so we can spread the word on Facebook, or send a mass email to your address book, and please ask your friends to share it with their friends. Here's something I found disturbing this week. It came to me from the Foster Club. Hope you're sitting down. It says, under current law, youth who have aged out of foster care are eligible for Medicaid coverage until the age of 26. Sounds good, right? Eligible for Medicaid until age of 26. All right, here's where it goes south. Unfortunately, the law was interpreted in a way that allows states to choose whether or not to cover youth who move from one state to another. Boo. That's terrible. That's terrible. People who are in unstable housing, move from one state to another in a heartbeat. We live in the Trenton, New Jersey area, and that's right on the borderline of Pennsylvania. It's right on the Delaware River. We move back and forth between New Jersey and Pennsylvania 5-6 times a day. And a person who needs a couch to sleep on is not going to be discriminating, as to whether they stay in one state or the other. They're going to find a place to sleep. So far, only 14 states have taken the option to cover foster youth who have aged out in a different state. So here we have the Health Insurance for Former Foster Youth Act. And it's a House Bill 4998, introduced by Senator Bob Casey in the Senate and Representative Karen Bass in the House. Helps close this unintentional loophole, which makes it more difficult for former foster youth to gain access to coverage. Now, if you want to go to fosterclub.com, they have a petition going on there, which you can sign, and actually it's really laid out nicely. You sign it, and it goes to your senator and your congressman. So you might want to go to www.fosterclub.com and sign the petition to see if other states will ratify that. I see Sharon is out there, says hi. Hi, Sharon. Glad to have you aboard tonight. So, all right, so now I want to tell you about Job Corps and a special event that's taking place a week from Friday. Job Corps, very interesting. Job Corps is a tuition-free career training and education program. And the one thing that we try so hard to do with these youth is to get them off of thinking about a job and on to thinking about a career. And, if you have a high school diploma or a GED, you could be thinking career. The U.S. Department of Labor program, this is from the U.S. Department of Labor, enrolls more than 60,000 students each year. For those students, Job Corps is the first step toward careers in high-demand industries. It connects eligible young men and women ages 16 through 24 with the skills and educational opportunities they need to establish real careers. Job Corps students are motivated, committed, and hardworking, and our graduates go on to enter the workforce, join the military, or enter higher education. There are 126 campus locations nationwide, including Puerto Rico, that provide hands-on career training in 11 high-growth industry sectors, including healthcare, information technology, finance and business, and advanced manufacturing, to name a few. And advanced manufacturing, that's going to be the killer career in the future. Learning how to run the robots who run the factory. That's going to make money for a lot of people. In Connecticut, New Jersey, and New York, there are 10 Job Corps centers. And if you want to know more about Job Corps, of course, you can write to them or you can write to me, and I'll send you some links to hook you up on that. Interesting thing about this, people who get into the Job Corps program, are you ready for this? Most students who attend Job Corps live on campus. So if you have somebody out there who's between 16 and 24 and homeless, especially if they have high school, this is something that you definitely want to look into. Or if you are between the ages of 16 and 24 right now and need a path, you know, it's not just a solution if you're homeless. It's a path towards a career. And I find this a lot. Like, there are jobs programs, and kids will walk into the jobs program and say, I heard this is where you go to get a job. And that's not what they are. It's never what they are. They're always competency tests to make sure if you don't have your GED that you get it. Actually, they call it HSE now, high school equivalency. And then there's training programs to lead towards something sustainable in your life. This is not get a job for minimum wage, spend every penny you have, and then couch surf. You know, this is for you know, people who are serious. While attending Job Corps, students will have access to education, career training, housing and dormitories, basic medical care, nutritious meals, recreation and fitness, community outreach, and a positive environment with supportive instructors and career counselors. Sign me up. What do you need? What more do you need? More information about Job Corps can be found online by visiting recruiting.jobcorps, that's JOBCORPS.gov. And you could also call 800-733-JOBS. That's 800-733-JOBS for Job Corps. Now, big Job Corps event, an open house is taking place a week from this Friday, April 13th. I am bringing some people there personally. I still have a little bit of room. If you need a ride, hit me up on Facebook, send me an email, or give me a call, because it's from 10 until noon on Friday, April 13th. And it is at the Edison, New Jersey location. And the address of that is 500 Plainfield Avenue, Edison, New Jersey. And I'm told we have a caller on the line. Is that true? Caller, are you there?
Yes. Good evening, Greg. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you just fine, Marcy. As long as that's you, Marcy.
That's me. Hi.
Thanks.
Good evening.
Thanks so much for calling in. Good evening to
Sure.
you. It's great to hear from you. Now, you and I just met a couple of days ago, and
correct.
And you just knocked me out because you seem to have been involved in something having to do with child welfare for a very long time. And did it start with being a foster parent? Is that where it began, or did it begin before that?
No, I would say the foster parenting was probably part of a culminating process. It started a long time ago, okay? And I think what I have to say about the fostering is I was single parenting my daughter, and she was in middle school, and she had a best friend who was living with her grandmother, and they had been taken away from their parents, her best friend and her sister, okay? And my daughter and her best friend were like magnets with each other. They were just like, they just loved each other. And they came up with this idea that I should foster her best friend.
Oh my, they came up with that themselves.
Yes, they did.
Hey, Mom,
okay?
We have this great idea. Okay.
I know, right? So, and I thought, oh my God, you know, there's going to be some issues here, guys, because first of all, we're moving to a different county. Now, this is in California for anybody who's listening, okay? So we moved to a different county, and I thought that's going to be an issue right there. And also, we don't have permission from the grandmother. I don't know that I feel comfortable about this. So let me just give names here so I don't have to keep saying daughter and best friend. We'll call my daughter Sarah and her best friend Allie, okay?
All right.
So Allie basically went to her grandmother and said, I don't want to live with you anymore. I want to live with Sarah. And somehow the social worker got involved with the grandmother, and the grandmother was not happy, I'm going to tell you right now.
Yeah.
But the social worker felt, well, the social worker called me and said, I want to come up and see your house. And we had just moved up to the Redwoods in California. It's a rural area,
Right.
okay?
Yeah.
And in Sonoma County, and it's wine country, actually. So the social worker came up, and she walks up the 70 steps, because I have a cabin with 70 steps up to the door.
Okay.
And she goes, oh, my gosh, this is the most beautiful place. I am going to place Allie with you. And then she turns around and she says, oh, by the way, you get her sister, too.
That was my next question was, did they split up the sibling pair? Okay.
No, they didn't split up the sibling pair, and I thought, oh, no.
What did I get into exactly?
Well, I did. I was thinking, okay, this is altruistic, but I wanted to do it because my daughter Sarah was like, they just loved each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you could just see that love, and they're best friends, by the way, now. And this was like over 10, 15 years ago.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Okay?
Yeah, it's great.
So they're very close. So I said, okay, I knew there were going to be issues. And so they all moved up. I got the siblings, and well, first of all, for Sarah and Allie, it was like an eternal pajama party. They were like together all the time, like the Bobbsey twins, right?
Oh, that's so beautiful.
And going to school together, hanging out together. I could hear them laughing throughout the night. It was really wonderful. Okay?
Yes.
And I felt really, really good about that. The sister went AWOL.
Oh, how old was she? Now, tell me the age of Allie, and how old was Allie's sister?
Okay, so Allie, they had just started 7th grade, so I don't know what age is that. Like,
so 7th
what,
grade
13?
is 12 or 13, yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
And the little one?
Sister, and then my daughter was the same age, but the sister, the older sister, was like a couple of years older. So
she was older.
I think like a freshman in high school, I think.
Okay.
So my whole point in saying this is I have been working in the system for a long time in different aspects, starting up nonprofits, working with mothers in particular who were working on reunification with their children who were in foster care. I am an educator in California, credentialed. I've taught parenting. I've done it all. Okay, life skills, you name it.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of clients who are trying to get their kids back, basically, before they would lose them, from Child Protective Services in California. So anyway, the older sister went AWOL on me, and it really, honestly, was kind of a nightmare. I had sleepless nights. She would call me up in the middle of the night making demands, and she was bad-mouthing me to the community. I mean, there was nothing really I could do about that. So here we are in 2 different counties. We moved to different counties, the social workers in another county, and I went to, it was in Oakland, California, where the original fostering was, the placement.
Sure.
I went to see the director of social services, and I explained the situation. I just want anybody who's listening right now to know that there's so many challenges in this. But there's so many positives at the same time, and you really have to have the tenacity and the determination to make it work no matter what.
I have to ask you.
Yes.
But before I do that, I want to say hi to Jammy Whammy, who's out there listening, and I want to let everyone out there know that we just went over 40,000 listeners right now. Oh
my gosh.
Marcy, you're skewing very high. I'm assuming the extra 2,000 are your friends.
Well,
could be.
I don't have quite that many friends.
But we're over 40,000 listeners right now. So,
okay.
all right. So
that's beautiful.
So my question to you is this: Like they said, okay,
Okay.
we're gonna place this child with you, and guess what? You get the other
Yes.
child too. Did
Yes,
did
yes.
they set you off in a course of training? Were you prepared from training? Were you given
Okay.
training to let you know
All right.
that this could go south in a heartbeat?
Okay, so this is the deal. I always say I'm the exception to every rule. They waived every bit of training for me because of my background. Okay? I mean, there's a parenting requirement.
Of course.
I've taught parenting. Every single requirement was waived for me.
So
okay?
did your
The
background
social workers?
did your background
Go ahead.
did your background tell you that that the relationship with this foster child could go in any direction? Were you prepared for that?
I'm always prepared.
Okay.
Because from my experience, just in general, from my experiences in life, and putting myself out there as a risk taker and adventurer, and really caring about human beings, things can turn around in a minute.
Yeah.
And building relationships is so important. So I really honestly could not predict. I couldn't predict what I could. The system is what failed me in some respects. I went to see the director and I said, look, the sibling has run away. She's AWOL. And they go, well, there's nothing we can do about it.
Right.
So I left there feeling really disheartened, going, well, what do? I can't chase her around. So I basically just let her go. I let her go. And that didn't happen right away. I mean, I would say that it probably took like a month or two at least. And the older sibling was really was grateful for that amount of time that she was in our home. I remember one thing that she said to me that always stayed with me. She said, thank you so much, Marcy, for getting up with us in the morning and feeding us before we go to school.
They went to school hungry. When
Yes,
they were with the
did
grandmother,
their
they went to
parents.
school hungry. Yeah.
Well, with the parents,
Yeah,
I think it's more with
yeah.
the parents, the reflection
Yeah.
of the mother. See, they were homeless,
Yeah.
and Child Protective Services took them away because they were living in a homeless camp. Because, homelessness is big, especially in California where the weather's a little bit nicer.
Sure.
So it's a little bit easier to live outside.
Mm-hmm.
So that statement has always stayed with me to this day. I mean, her heart was right. Her heart was right. But she ran off, and here I am with my daughter and my foster daughter. I mean, I couldn't deal with it. I just couldn't deal with it.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I don't know if you heard the beginning of
Mm-hmm.
the show tonight, but I was telling everyone about how it's really been a kind of a bad week for us. We had a lady who was in college drop out. We had a person who was in Covenant House run away and go back with their parents and then end up homeless again. It's been a struggle this week. But my message when I talk about stuff like that is to tell people to never give up on kids, because you do make something of an impact. And what you just said, about that this girl, as rough as she was on you and on herself, I mean, let's face it, she's her own worst enemy. She had a takeaway from you that was positive.
Let's bring it up to the present for just a second. Okay, so I don't really talk to my foster daughter, who's my daughter's best friend, but I will be in the future, okay? Because my daughter's going to be moving back to California, so I'm going to be right there where my foster daughter's going to be living. But she ended up, I cannot tell you what kind of impact I had on her, but I can tell you that the love that I showed her was consistent on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I treated her absolutely equal to my daughter in every single thing. Our holidays were absolutely amazing.
Oh,
okay?
Yeah.
Everything was equal in every way, shape, and form. So I cannot tell you if I made a difference, but she's graduated from college and she has a teaching degree and she's working with kids. So I can't tell you how much influence I had on that. Okay?
Yeah.
Now the other sibling, she ended up having I think 4 or 5 children, and she's living off the grid on a piece of land in Tennessee, and she's doing really well also with her husband. I mean, it's
Okay.
a whole different lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have made a decision. I talked to my daughter about this actually a couple of months ago. I'm going to have more contact with them now because I think there's been enough time passed.
Yeah.
I have never
Yeah.
gotten a thank you, and I don't even think that's important.
Mhm.
But you are right. We cannot give up for 1 second on our youth. We
Yeah.
cannot.
Yeah. And even when you don't get the you don't get the give back that you may expect sometimes when you give all the love that's in your heart, but still you're making an impact. So what you're saying basically is that when you foster a child, there's really no difference between that and raising a biological child.
There, I personally saw no difference. I embraced her. My home became her home, and I loved her as much as I possibly could love anyone coming into my home. I would say that. I don't know that every foster parent would say that, but I would.
Sounds like you still do. Sounds like there's a place in your heart that needs, needs fulfillment with them.
Always,
Yeah.
always. In fact, I'm thinking about actually adopting kids at this point. So,
Mhm.
teenagers, people like roll their eyes when I say that. I go, you know what? Somebody's got to love these kids.
Yes.
Somebody has to.
Amen. Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know,
So this
fiercely love our children.
absolutely. Absolutely. Now the older one, she was tough, and my question to you is, did you ever find yourself in a situation that was physically threatening?
No, I didn't. I will tell you this, though. There were some great social workers involved in this whole process. There were several of them over the years. And some of them came to the house and some of them didn't. But one social worker over the phone told me she said, this is confidential information. I cannot reveal to you what's in the file, but she said, be careful. That's all she said.
Oh my!
I know. I don't even know what
Goodness.
And she says, change your locks. When I said that she went AWOL, she said, change your locks.
Oh God, how cryptic!
She said, well, you know what? I have not to this day figured out what she was talking about. And you know what? It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter. And I never felt threatened. Okay.
Yeah.
Ever. But I'm kind of a tough chickie here.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, tough but love, right?
No, it's all love.
It's
I
all
mean,
love,
part
yeah.
of what I do as an educator, Greg, is I go into the detention facilities.
Oh,
okay?
hold that. We're going to take a break,
Yeah.
and then we're going
Yeah.
to get to the other things that you do.
Okay.
So right now,
Okay.
I'd like the engineers to cue up the music. We're going to take a short break and give everyone.
Okay.
We're over 40,000 listeners tonight. I want to give everyone a chance to hit that share button on their Facebook page. Marcy, stay on the line. We'll be back in 1 minute.
Okay.
We're back with Marcy Giarizzo.
Yeah.
Probably the most interesting person I've met in a while. And Marcy, we're going to come back to you in just a minute. But before we do that, I need to take a moment and remind everyone about the Princeton Elks Charitable Trust. The Princeton Elks Charitable Trust provides funds for worthy individuals, organizations, and veterans. If you think you have a worthy cause, you should call the president of the trust directly to find out if you qualify. His name is Stuart Malikoff. His phone number is 609-933-7085. And I know I said that too fast for you to write it down. So if you want to be able to call the trust, you're going to have to either play this tape back slowly or send me a note on Facebook, and I'll be happy to send you that information. But do it right away while they have money. I want to thank all the people who made donations to Age Out Angels this week. And remember, every time you purchase something from Amazon, you could be making a donation to Age Out Angels without spending a penny more. You heard me right. It does not cost you money to donate to Age Out Angels through Amazon. You know, when you go to Amazon, there's a pop-up that offers you a chance to go to a place called Amazon Smile. And if you go there and you make your purchase through Amazon Smile, you can designate Age Out Angels as your donation organization. So without it costing you more, a portion of your purchase will go to help children who need it the most. And if you want to friend me on Facebook, what I can do is send you a link that will take you directly to our designation, so you won't have to wade through 1,000 other organizations to find us. Save you time and a few clicks. But please, please, please designate Age Out Angels as your Amazon Smile organization. Also, I want to make everyone aware of a new program being offered at Age Out Angels, and it has to do with what we call guided imagery. This comes to us courtesy of our staff psychologist and transition director, Vivian Francesco. And what this is, like, you know, imagine a room full of young people or adults, and you know, in a therapeutic environment, sometimes a therapist will tell everyone to close their eyes and take them back through events in their lives that were not very pleasant, in order to learn how to deal with those events and have those events stop being obstacles to their present success process. What we do with children is a little bit different. We're not going back into time to look for the sadness. We're actually going back to help the child access what we call their happy child. Because what we believe is that if the child can find just a little bit of satisfaction in their lives, and we're talking about dealing with children who have frequently suffered multiple complex trauma, okay, that this is a program that can really be beneficial to them. And the whole point of doing this is to remove obstacles that keep people from progressing. And Marcy, I think those obstacles are the things that rear their ugly heads when we have a child who seems to be moving in a good direction and then will suddenly just fall completely backwards.
Yeah.
Are you out there?
I'm out here.
Oh,
yes.
I'm glad. So
Yes.
All right. So tell me what you're doing now. You're doing something with incarceration. Explain that to me.
Well, the reason I say that, when the social worker told me that, you know, be careful, change your locks or whatever, I'm a person who really treads into areas where a lot of people might not. I'm credentialed, and I go into detention facilities and parole offices. I actually taught at Rikers Island a couple of years ago for a minute, and I loved it. It's all wonderful work, okay? And I'm credentialed adult educator, okay?
Okay.
Under a number of different subjects in California. Actually, I don't need that credential in New York at all. Don't need it. Mm-hmm. So I'm starting up actually a land trust, a housing project is what I'm doing, to build a rehab crew and to offer home ownership to, well, hopefully the formerly incarcerated, people who would not have the opportunity to have home ownership. So I'm in the process of identifying a neighborhood, and it might be Cincinnati, Ohio, of all places. It could be Philadelphia. It's going to have to be somewhat, you know, distressed properties, basically. Mm-hmm. So it's a social entrepreneurial project. And I mean, what I really see are, you know, a whole mentoring model in that, where you have the adults and they're mentoring the youth, and it's a model is what it is. So I'm working on a number of different things, okay? Uh-huh. And then I make my living as a hearing reporter for Social Security disability hearings. I am currently doing that in New York City. It's a way to keep me mobile. I'm a federal contractor, and I just stay mobile with it. I'm a freelancer. So, because when you want to do something for humanity and you don't want to be locked into a 9-to-5, you really have to find a way to be able to work your time so you can get things done, right?
That's the takeaway there, is you're thinking, when you order your priorities, your first priority seems to be to figure out a way to help some people. And then
It really is.
and yeah, so then the rest of the narrative of your life sort of falls in lockstep with that.
And the money follows.
Yes.
In other words, don't follow the money, but let the money follow your calling and your passions for living out life.
So when did you start doing this? When, with all the credentialing and all that other stuff? I mean, where's the part in your life where that happened?
It's been a long time. It's when my daughter was born when I got serious about all of that. So I started working on my education. So that's like 30 years ago, 29 years ago. I mean, I got a couple of bachelor's degrees. I got a master's degree. I have some law school under my belt. So, you know, a lot of education. I did a lot of field education work, internships, all kinds of stuff. But I was also working during, you know, a big part of that and starting up nonprofits in the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area.
Have you sort of witnessed firsthand children who are being removed from their biological homes? What can you tell us a little bit about what you've seen?
Well, I guess I can say I haven't really experienced firsthand. What I've experienced is the trauma of the child after they've been removed, when I've been counseling, and then they meet, say there's family counseling with their biological parents, but primarily I've worked with the mothers, okay? Like in treatment facilities, because it's usually behind drugs that they've lost their children.
Really?
Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, well, we're talking California here, but I think that's pretty universal at this point. So the trauma. I worked with teen parents also, the very first teen parent program in Oakland, California, okay? The trauma that they go through, and they have their children taken away from them, the trauma for the children being separated from their parents. And then the parents, you know, feeling the guilt and the shame. And then being under the gun with the county or the state or in court mandated requirements, conditions to, you know, meet those so they can reunify with their children.
Right. So the mother has to follow certain stipulated guidelines, which they then they revisit that in court every 3 months or 6 months or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And then the child may or may not be reunited with the biological mother, who then hopefully stays off drugs, right, and passes her sample tests.
And, you know, usually one of those conditions is getting a job. So here they are, they're trying to be clean and sober, you know, work on their recovery. They've got to find a job. They have to find a home. And I mean, you know, in certain parts of the country, it's really almost impossible to find housing at this point, okay? And then the resources for, you know, getting different housing subsidies, etc. Because housing is key if you're going to reunify, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I
see it all the time. I see it all the time here, where you know, you can get a housing subsidy if you have a job, but if you don't have a job, then you can't get a housing subsidy. So if you don't have a job, you really need a housing subsidy, but that's not how it works. So, you know,
I'd like to comment on one of the big challenges when I was fostering. This is for anybody who's thinking about fostering, and anybody who is fostering, they're probably going to get what I'm about to say, is dealing with the parents of the children you are fostering.
Yeah.
Now, in my case, it became almost a nightmare, okay? First of all, my foster daughter wanted to see her parents on a regular basis. I did not stop that. I wanted her to see them. So I had to drive, you know, like 2, 3, 4 hours just to get her to see her parents. And they were not nice to me, okay?
Yeah.
They treated me very poorly. They talked about me behind my back. And then I invited them to my house a few times. That was probably a big mistake. But what I was trying to do was trying to build relationships here. And they were working on a reunification, actually, and I wanted to help them with that. There would be nothing greater for me than to see their daughters reunified with them. Okay?
Yeah.
So the dad was out on the street as a drug addict, so he really was not part of that whole thing. The mother was really working hard. She had Tourette syndrome, if anybody knows what that is.
Sure.
That's you know,
Involuntary
boy, there's a lot of
sounds
yeah.
and movements. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of discrimination against that particular disability in particular because it appears to be bizarre to people.
Right. It looks
I
like,
had no problem with it whatsoever.
yeah, it looks
I
like
was
looks
fine
like
with it.
maladaptive social behavior.
Yes. So that was one of the huge challenges because there were a couple times when the mom came to visit us and she caused just pure chaos. Pure chaos in my house.
Let me
And
interrupt
so
you.
here
Let me
I am.
interrupt you for
Yeah,
just one
go ahead.
second because a whole bunch of people just signed on. Brian, Lisa. Lisa said she shared this with everybody on Facebook. Ralph, Bernard, Jeff, Matt, Ray B, and Tom. All of a sudden, we had a whole big onslaught of people that we need to
Yay.
say hi to. Yay! So we're probably over 40,000 by now. I'm sorry,
Great.
Marcy. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go on. You were talking about.
No, that's okay. That was one of the big challenges, and
You know what? I never know. You want to. Are you supposed to be developing a relationship with the biological family, or with the caregiver family? In your case, the grandparent, right?
no, I had no contact with her. Okay, I mean, she was like resentful because the kids came to live with me.
Yeah,
okay?
she was right. She was
So
jealous.
she wanted nothing to do with me, but the mother was under conditions to reunify. Maybe it's just who I am as a human being. I wanted to see them reunified. Okay?
Yes.
My heart was like, oh my gosh, we got to make this happen. I role modeled compassion and fairness, but I'm also tough, right? Tough as nails.
Mm-hmm.
But I role modeled all that to try to help the reunification process. Okay?
Yes.
So they didn't reunify. I mean, eventually my foster daughter graduated from high school and then just, naturally reunified because she was over 18.
Right.
So they all have wonderful relationships now.
Mm-hmm.
And they have for a number of years.
Well, and you were following the basic mandate of foster care, right? Which is reunification. That's what foster care is supposed to be all about.
Yes, that's what it's supposed to be, exactly.
So you were following the program. So we have a few minutes left. I'm just curious if you have anything to say about, sort of what were some of the good aspects of the system and what are some of the aspects of the system that you feel could really use or could have used a little overhaul.
The good aspects of the system, when you find a good social worker, you have found gold.
Gold.
Okay?
Yes.
They will do everything in their power to address any issues. They will visit on a regular basis, and I had some great social workers involved. The system is the system. It's bureaucratic, and you can kind of get lost in the system. And what you have to do is be persevering, and if you need help, you need to keep seeking it and don't give up.
Yeah.
Find somebody who will listen to you in the system.
Mm-hmm. That one person. You're always looking for that one, right?
You're always looking for that one. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. What kind of issues are we talking about here?
What kind of what?
What kind of issues are we talking about here? What were some of the issues that?
Well, it could be anything. They could be drinking alcohol when you go off to work.
Mm-hmm.
It could be you've got somebody coming over visiting and everybody needs to be fingerprinted and you find out that somebody's got a criminal record.
Okay.
What else is there?
Wow.
You could find out the kids are smoking pot.
Mm-hmm. We need to say it all.
You have whatever it is. Don't worry. They're not going to they're not going to pull the kids out of the home.
Mm-hmm.
What they're going to do, they come into your home. They want to see how clean it is. They do an inspection.
I presume they're looking
right?
for food to make sure there's food in your cupboard.
Yeah, they want to make sure that each child, this is in California, has their own space to sleep.
Okay.
And do they have a comfortable environment? Do they have a yard? Are there pets? I mean, I don't think any of those things are really requirements, but I think it helps. Is there a really nice, comfortable environment? You don't have to be living in wealth or anything. It just needs to be comfortable and safe. They wanted to know how many knives I had in the kitchen.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there a like a magic number there they were looking for?
I don't think there was a magic number, but I got rid of all my knives except for one.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Um, they want to know it's safe. And I mean, there's so many different issues. Maybe they're teenagers and they're spending time with friends, and then they're not coming home when they're supposed to. They're not calling you when they're supposed to, or they didn't show up at school.
Mm-hmm. And like, do you call the caseworker in a lot of those situations and sort of ask for guidance? And
Yeah.
how does that work? Like, how does that relationship work between you and the caseworker?
Well, like I said, if you have a good caseworker, then everything's good. They'll talk to you on the phone.
You call them. You'd initiate the call.
Yes, yes. And then, I mean, I don't know how it works in New Jersey, but they have like regular visits, so regular home visits.
Right. Yeah, well, they're supposed to have regular home visits, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what they did. They made regular home visits, and of course we did even better house cleaning before the social workers showed up.
Of course, that's your chance to do a deep cleaning. Yes.
Yeah. Everybody took a shower. Yeah. No, it was like it becomes kind of a very almost kind of an intimate kind of relationship. You really get to know each other, the caseworkers, the kids. The foster parents. You sit around, you talk, you joke, you have regular conversation. They ask you questions, and then they talk to the kids separately.
It sounds frustrating and wonderful at the same time.
Yes.
Are you planning a trip to Tennessee?
I was never worried though. Huh?
Are you planning a trip to Tennessee?
To Tennessee?
Yeah, where the older one is?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a really good question. I mean, I want to rebuild, after all these years, the relationship. I really honestly do.
Yeah.
And I want to tell them how wonderful they are and how proud I am of both of them.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful the way the love
Yes.
just oozes out of you. You're a special person,
Thank you
Marcy.
so much.
You bet.
Thank you.
So
are you.
Oh, thanks. I want to thank you very much for coming on the show. That's all the time we have tonight.
Okay, you're very welcome.
I hope that you will consider maybe coming back at some point in the future and giving us an update on how your relationship with these folks is progressing. Would you do that?
I surely would.
Oh,
yes.
We'd love it. We'd love it. We'd love it. Thanks, Marcy, so much. I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
You have a good evening.
Okay. All right. You too. Bye-bye.
That was Marcy Giarizzo, one of the most interesting people I've met in a very, very, very long time. So a few final words. I wanted to tell you a few news items from around the country to help keep all the challenges that we face in this industry in perspective. There are people working everywhere to try to make the odds of success better for youth. And here are some of them. Of course, you've heard me talk about the Ann E. Casey Foundation, and they have joined Funders for Housing and Opportunity, a collaborative of 9 private foundations working to ensure families can afford safe, stable rentals in vibrant communities. You heard Marcy talk about housing. Now you hear about a project from the Ann E. Casey Foundation. Little by little, we help people one at a time. Funders for the Housing and Opportunity will make investments, $5 million over the next 3 years so far, that will spark large-scale change on 3 fronts. Those fronts are engaging in advocacy work and resident engagement to drive policy changes, raising awareness about why housing matters and its connection to opportunity, and supporting proven and replicable initiatives that expand cross-sector solutions. The final 2018 budget bill, signed into law on February 9th, incorporates, you've heard me talk about this before, the Family First Prevention Services Act. This piece of legislation significantly alters the child welfare financing landscape and is poised to have a powerful and positive impact on the lives of children and families. I agree with that, except my one bugaboo about that is that they didn't raise the budget. They just reallocated the same amount of money in a different way. Hopefully, it will be a more productive way. We'll wait and see. But I wish they had given us the same percentage budget allocation that the military got. That's all I'm going to say. Some reasons why child welfare advocates are cheering the Family First Act is because it makes federal dollars available earlier so that agencies can fund critical services that may prevent the need for foster care. There's this whole thing now, this movement going on about preventive measures to keep children out of foster care in the first place. It's pretty cool. You just heard Marcy talk about the trauma that children face when they're removed from their houses. And if you're a regular listener of this show and you heard people like Nico Lee, Biddle talk about this unnecessary removal of children from households, there's no need, if it isn't completely necessary, for children to suffer that additional trauma, and parents suffer that additional trauma as well of being yanked, essentially, out of their houses. The act also supports federal reimbursements for family placements and ends reimbursements when states inappropriately place kids in group homes. And before I go on, I just want to say hi to George, Vince, Kelly, Frankie in New York. Hi, everybody. I'm so glad that you guys are listening tonight. So that's what's going on at the Annie Casey Foundation. Now, right here in Trenton, we have a fabulous Boys and Girls Club. And I'll bet there's one near where you live, too. And I just want to let the local folks know that Spring Fest is this Saturday, April 7th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Boys and Girls Club of Trenton Spruce Street Clubhouse. They're going to have food trucks, a Princeton game truck, moon bounce, a new blow-up slide, an obstacle course, and more. Also, summer camp at the Boys and Girls Club is almost underway. It's right around the corner. Make sure your child doesn't miss out on the Boys and Girls Clubs of Mercer County summer camp experience. Listen to these groups at the Boys. This is the Boys and Girls Clubs now, right? They have the Academy of Natural Science, Drobots Drone Camp, Mad Science, Rutgers 4-H Club, Central Jersey Engineering for Kids, the Scholar Tree, East Coast Recording, Wick Line Casting. Wick Line Casting, did you hear that? Cooking, and so many more options to choose from. Then there's this event called Art Making Day. Art Making Day is a free event that promotes the ability to educate and connect the entire community through various forms of creative expression. Parents, grandparents, teenagers, and children, and this is also very important because these events that don't separate children from their family but actually incorporate the whole family together. What we're trying to do, especially here in Trenton, and I'm sure in every other area where there are children in unstable housing, is we're trying to build stronger families. There's not a soul too old or too young, so bring your whole family and make it art. You make art, and you can hang it up at one of the upcoming exhibits here that we have in Trenton called Art All Night, which is where we stay up all night. And we actually can do that because the art is so good and so interesting that they hang in a massive sort of warehouse area here in Trenton, and we're looking forward to that. Or if you don't want to show your work, that's okay. You can just participate in the fun and creative activities. Materials are provided. That's at the Boys and Girls Club, again, at the Spruce Street Community Center. And also, that takes place at the New Jersey State Museum, which is a fabulous place. And finally, the Boys and Girls Club, which has just announced a whole mess of things this week, a college, job, and career fair, May 10th from 5:30 to 7 p.m., also at the Spruce Street Clubhouse. And I have some candidates for that because we work with children who are a little bit older at Age Out Angels. We're 14 to 24, but really the people who need our help the most are in that 18 to 24 age range. Finally tonight comes some really good news from the University of Georgia. The headline reads, "Program gives students from the foster care system and those experiencing homelessness the resources they need to succeed." And I love that headline because we talk a lot about kids who are in the foster care system and youth who age out of the foster care system and how lost that they can be. And as important as that is, it's also important to include with that grouping The children who are living in vulnerable situations, in unstable housing situations. Maybe they're in kinship programs, but they're not officially in the foster care system. They need our help, and especially children who are experiencing homelessness. This is a story about a girl named Margaret, and Margaret hates the word homeless. But when she transferred to the University of Georgia in the fall of 2014, that's what she was. You hear this story so much. This is just Margaret's, but this happened so much. Her father had been diagnosed with a terminal illness earlier that year. Doctors told her father, he was a single parent, that he had less than a year to live, causing him to fall into a deep depression. He stopped paying the bills, and the bank foreclosed on the family's house. Margaret says, I didn't have anywhere to live where my family was at the time, so I told myself I might as well not have a place to live while going to school. So she picked herself up, says Margaret, now 25. I didn't really have a plan or a place to live when I moved to Athens. This is Athens, Georgia. A friend was nice enough to let me sleep on their couch, so I ended up sleeping on their couch for about 8 months. The stress of working 2 jobs, going to school full-time, and trying to make ends meet finally got to be too much. Margaret decided that maybe college just wasn't in the cards for her. And you hear this all the time. This story goes this way so much, where someone will get it together and start college and get moving, and you feel like they're going in the right direction. And then all of a sudden, it just all becomes overwhelming. They need help. They need somebody. They need a mentor. That's what Age Out Angels provides. But Margaret found a program called Embark, E-M-B-A-R-K, Embark, launched in 2012 by University of Georgia's J.W. Fanning Institute for Leadership Development. Embark Georgia is a statewide network designed to identify former foster care or homeless college students and connect them to the resources they need to earn their degrees. That's exactly what we do with Age Out Angels. Embark partners with representatives from numerous state and social service agencies to provide financial aid and other assistance to help students attend and afford college. Children who have been in foster care are far less likely to graduate from college than the rest of the general population, says David Myers, one of Embark's network directors, along with Lori Tiller. Both are faculty members at the Fanning Institute. And they say together, we know that having a college education unlocks all kinds of opportunities in terms of income, leadership, opportunities, and more. These students don't have the support that makes college feel like an option to them. In Georgia, there are 14,000 children in foster care, about 300 age out of the system every year. Another 36,000 students in Georgia have been identified as experiencing homelessness. And there's the rub, ladies and gentlemen. 14,000 in foster care, 36,000, another 36,000 who are homeless. It's a bigger chunk than the kids who are in foster care. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another hour listening to the things that we feel are most important when it comes to this generation of children that's being lost and should matter more in our political and economic discourse than they do. We thank you so much for tuning in, all 40,000 plus of you. Thank you so much, and maybe helping us to spread the word. I hope you'll tell your friends about us. Again, we offer humble thanks to Hamilton Radio, to my very special guest, Marcy Giarizzo. Join me next Thursday at 8 p.m., when my guest in the studio will be Ashley Griffith from Habitat for Humanity. So until then, let's make this week the best week ever. Good night. It's okay. That was so good.